Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Lucie Wardle. I'm the Supply Chain Development Manager at Food for Life Scotland, and I will be talking to you today about the importance of local and Scottish food in the public sector, and specifically in school meals, and talk about the work that we do at Food for Life Scotland. So a little bit more about the programme. Food for Life Scotland is a programme that is run by the charity Soil Association Scotland and fully funded by the Scottish Government. And we work with the mechanism of the Food for Life Served Here award, which helps local authorities to get more local food on the table and to serve fresh, healthy and sustainable meals in their school by certifying achievement at 3 different Food for Life Served Here award levels: bronze, silver and gold. Now, I'm not going to go through all of the standards with you today, but the overall aim of the scheme is to encourage and reward caterers who serve fresh food, so that's less processed food, less prepared food, to source environmentally sustainable and ethical food, so more foods like organic and free range and higher welfare foods, to make healthy eating easier, and also to champion local food producers. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. So here's a map showing where Food for Life works across Scotland. And we currently have 18 local authorities who hold the Food for Life Served Here award, which means that's 1,330 sites and almost 140,000 Food for Life Served Here meals being served every day. So as you can see, it's a huge impact, which means that all of those meals on the plates of school children have the opportunity to include more seasonal, more local food and support local producers. And the team, we're based in Edinburgh. We have a dedicated team working on this programme of partnerships managers, menu and catering skills officers, communication support, data analysis and evaluation, and also supply chain development, which is the work that I lead on. We have a huge focus on Scottish sourcing, which leads into community wealth building and really focuses on investing public money back into public goods and supporting local businesses. So a little bit more about local supply chains and community wealth building and why it's important. So by championing local food producers and local Scottish food, we're investing back into the local community and the local economy. And it's also a really important way of reconnecting people with where their food comes from and how it's produced. So we're supporting those local businesses, we're encouraging local supply chains. And that means providing a really valuable route to market for producers and suppliers. We're connecting people to where their food comes from. So especially for children and school meals, it's really important that they understand that food does not always come wrapped in plastic and, from the supermarket, that actually it's coming from farmers in their local area. It normalises eating seasonal food, which is also really important for children to understand that you can't get all foods, all year round, and that you shouldn't be eating strawberries 12 months of the year, and why they taste so much better when they're grown down the road. We've also learned that long and complex supply chains are very fragile. So the pandemic has shown us this, Brexit, and now we've got a lot of other issues affecting our supply chains. And during the pandemic, we did some research with local authorities and their suppliers to understand the difference between the changes in supply chains through the pandemic and how different types of suppliers were able to support local authorities. And we found that those councils that used smaller local suppliers were finding that they were really quickly able to pivot their operation to support what the council needed. And when we spoke to the suppliers, they said, for example, they're a family-run business, or there's only a couple of them in the management of the business. So they were able to recognise really quickly what their local authority needed and were able to change that to support them, which was so valuable for those councils at that high pressure time. We're also creating jobs and training opportunities in the areas, which means protecting really valuable ancient skills and crafts like farming and food production, but also professions like butchery, cheese making, bakery. And these are things that, could die out if we're not supporting these local producers. A study that we did at Food for Life actually showed that for every £1 that was spent through the Food for Life programme, it generated a social return on investment of £4.41. So that's all that extra money which is being channeled back into the local economy. So why should suppliers supply into public procurement, and what are the benefits? We know that there's a preconception that working with the public sector can be very difficult, tendering, and there's a lot of red tape, which is partly correct, that it can be quite challenging at the beginning understanding the tendering process, but there is so much support out there, a lot of it offered by the Supplier Development Programme, and there's a lot of support and help available for suppliers out there. But there are so many benefits. So first of all, they are reliable and long-term contracts. So we're looking at 2, 3, 4 years plus, and they can be easily extended if both parties are happy to do that. So that means that you can build resilience in your business and plan long term. Also, you know that you're going to get paid. Councils have very reliable payment terms, and they tend to pay their bills on time. It's building your local reputation. If people in your area can see that the council is buying food from you for school meals, they know that that food is of a high quality, that it's safe, and it really builds your reputation as a business and a brand. And it enables that direct supply chain and enables you to build a relationship with your end customer. So you know that your food is going to be on the plates of school children across the local authority, and they know where their food is coming from as well. So a little bit more about how we actually work across the supply chain. We work with everyone in the supply chain, from the local authorities to the suppliers and everybody in between. So with local authorities, we help to identify opportunities for them to increase their Scottish sourcing, increase higher welfare products and more sustainable products. And we do that by helping them to identify what's available to them in the supply chain. We support them to facilitate supply chain projects and work with more local producers. We also help troubleshoot and problem solve for them when they have supply chain related issues. And really importantly, we celebrate success stories with local producers and Scottish sourcing, with lots of communications work. And also when local authorities gain the Food for Life Served Here award, and when they renew it, we love to tell good news stories about all the great work that's happening within those councils. With suppliers, we link them up with councils, help them to find new routes to market and new business opportunities. We facilitate projects with local authority caterers. We help to support that work with using data analysis, which can advise on volumes and demand. And we also develop new markets for Scottish suppliers and drive demand for more local and higher standards of food. And we signpost other support available and highlight contract opportunities. Industry stakeholders, also really important, that we work and collaborate with other organisations who are working in this space to really raise the profile of the public sector as a valuable route to market. So we collaborate with those organisations to support local authorities and Scottish suppliers to work together to get more high quality Scottish produce into school meals. So for local authorities, how can they work with their local suppliers? Well, there's lots of different ways to build those connections. If the product is below, or the contract is below the tendering threshold, you can work on a quick quote, on an individual arrangement. But also local authorities can choose more Scottish options from their existing suppliers and frameworks, and it's all about knowing what's out there and what's available to them. They can also link in local growers and producers with existing suppliers and wholesalers, which is a lot of the work that we do is actually making those connections. So a producer doesn't have to actually always tender for a contract. They can just build a new relationship with a supplier or wholesaler who already holds that contract. There's also local contracts available through councils, which can be found on Public Contracts Scotland, and Scotland Excel frameworks, which are often geographically lotted, so you can look at lots of different options within those frameworks. We work on a lot of different pilot projects, which are unique and different in every scenario. And it can be something hyper-local, looking at a really small regional area. It could be one product, one supplier, one school, or a geographical area, or a whole local authority, or the whole of Scotland. I mean, there's lots of different options. Here are some examples now of some pilot projects that we've worked on. So this one is an example of a hyper-local project, fresh produce supply on the island of Arran. So Woodside, which is a small croft, they had the initial idea that they would love to supply into their local schools. They were already supplying fruit and veg and free-range eggs to the local community, but they wanted to also help and supply the school meals. So they came to us with this idea. We facilitated that with the local authority, North Ayrshire, and now they are supplying 7 primary schools, 1 high school, and a care home. So that's all of the, the council-run facilities on the island are actually using them, and it's really helped them to build their business, attract a lot of attention to the amazing work that they're doing. They've employed more staff, they've expanded, and they're working on new ideas all the time. And this is really great for the council because it's a local supplier, and also they work with a community-supported agriculture approach. They're very ethically and sustainability focused, which is great. Here's another example. This one's in East Ayrshire, an organic dairy company. So Moskiel came to us a couple of years ago with the idea. This is Bryce, the farmer there, and he was really passionate about supplying into his local school meals. So we facilitated that meeting with the local authority and helped them to learn a little bit more about what Bryce was doing, why he was doing it differently, and why he was so passionate about this. So this example, Moskiel has a totally plastic-free supply chain. So it was something a little different that hadn't been in schools for many, many years, but he wanted to use vending machines in dining halls for children to get milk without the plastic bottle. So he won the tender for that work, and now that's what's happening. And it's really great to see the local authority investing in this supplier who has such a big focus on sustainability. So they've cut plastic out of the supply chain, they're reducing emissions with lots of different mechanisms, a biomass boiler, electric vans, but also it's an organic product, which means it's a higher quality product for the children, and it's also protecting the environment. So this is a really good example of public money supporting a really ethical, sustainable local business. And here's another slightly different example, West Lothian, and the way that they managed to massively increase the amount of Scottish meat on their menu. So one of the standards which is within the Food for Life Served Here award is that local authorities must commit to serving meat from farms that satisfy UK animal welfare. So this means red tractor and other kind of welfare standards, but it has to be from the UK. And this meant that just by switching that, within the first year of holding the award, the council were able to have 95% of their fresh butcher meat and 88% of all their meat served in West Lothian primary schools sourced from Scotland. So that's a massive change and a big impact to local farmers and the local Scottish supplier that they use, and a really high quality product. So that's it from me, but I think we have time now for a Q&A. So any questions, please do put them in the chat. I'm happy to discuss any ideas or questions, but also you can get in touch with me at any time. There's my email address, lwardle@soilassociation.org. Also, you can have a look at our website for more information and read about our case studies. Thank you. Thank you for listening to that and attending this session. I hope you found that useful. But as I said, we have some time for questions now. So if you haven't posted a question already, you can do in the right-hand side. There is a Q&A box that you can pop some questions in there. I can see I've got a couple already. So I will go to this one. What sort of products do councils buy for school meals? Yeah, that's a really good question. There's 5 main areas. So we have fresh meat, which includes poultry, fresh fruit and veg, grocery, frozen, and dairy, and also some local authorities have a bakery contract as well, that they'll get their bakery products. So that's the main areas, which covers all of the products. So contracts are usually allotted into those areas. Let me see here. Do I need to be able to deliver to all of the schools? So no, you don't. I went through the different types of contracts, so you can have local contracts or Scotland Excel frameworks, a couple of different ways to sell into public procurement for school meals. But often the contracts can just be supply only, which means you don't need the delivery infrastructure. So it could be that you're just delivering into a larger wholesaler who will be delivering to all of the schools in that local area. So yeah, that's how it can open up new areas of business for you if you don't have to deliver to all of the separate schools. Got another question here. Are higher standards of food actually tested with the kids? Feels like there's a disconnect between what kids want at school and what they're fed for a school meal. We want to bridge both. Yeah, that's a really good question. I think you'd be in dangerous territory if you asked children what do they want to eat for their lunch and only served them that. The local authorities are bound by the nutritional regulations, which really stipulates the menu and the items that are on the menu and the nutritional value of all of the meals. So they are tested. They do test those with the pupils and make sure that they are popular choices, and things that aren't popular aren't being chosen by students, are usually taken off the menu. So the way that we work with local authorities, it's about really the ingredients that goes into the food rather than the dishes. So it could be a beef burger, for example, but we would work with the local authority to make sure the beef that is used in that burger, that it's a high meat content, that it's British beef with some farm assurance, ideally Scottish. The bread bun could come from a nice local bakery down the road, and sourcing some local Scottish seasonal vegetables to go along with it. So that's the type of input that we would have to try and make that meal more seasonal and to use more local foods, and also to make sure that it's freshly prepared and not pre-produced or processed. So that's the kind of influence that we have. But yeah, I definitely agree with you. It's really important that the kids do enjoy their meals. So I've got another question here. When you say local, what do you mean? Is that Scottish or local to a specific area? So yeah, we do talk about local a lot, and in general, we do mean Scottish. So we're trying to increase the amount of Scottish food that is sold through the public sector and that is used in school meals. But as you heard from some of my examples of the pilot projects that we've worked on, we really try to get these hyper-local examples into school meals. So that's things like, on their Woodside in Arran, that they're actually based on the island and they're supplying into their local schools. And with the East Ayrshire example as well, Mossgiel Farm is actually based in the local authority. So they're both really good examples of how the money from the local authority that is spent on school meals is being directly put into businesses in that area and, filtering down into the economy and creating jobs. But on the whole, we are looking to increase Scottish. So it could be that the products come from elsewhere in the country, but we really want to funnel that food back into the public sector and into school meals rather than it being exported out. Just looking for another question here. Okay, so food seems to be procured off Scotland Excel frameworks quite a lot, and this is frustrating because we want to supply directly to the schools. Why should we bid for a framework when there's no guarantee of money coming in? It takes a lot of time. Yeah, that's a really good question. And and it's different across all of the local authorities. So some of them use Scotland Excel, some of them use more local contracts, and some use a mixture. Most of them do use a mixture, but I know that, a lot of food is procured from Scotland Excel. So I think in that example, if you are a local business and you have a product that your local authority wants to use in the school meals, it is possible for you to bid through that contract, but also build a relationship with that council to make sure that they're aware of your product and that it gets on the menu. So that's something that we at Food for Life can help facilitate, to get that provenance through the menu and through the choices. So things like that can help, I guess, build the visibility of your product, to get that into school meals. And all local authorities really want to support local suppliers, and they all see the benefit of it. So there is still a lot of opportunity going through Scotland Excel frameworks. But I can see where you're coming from there. But we can definitely have a conversation offline about that as well, and I can try and work with you on your example. Another question here, I'm an SME, can I tender for contracts, or are they for bigger companies? I couldn't service the whole of Scotland. Yeah, so another great question there. I think in the past, it has been the kind of preconception that public sector goes for huge companies that can service the whole of Scotland. But that's not the case anymore. Local authorities are definitely looking for more local suppliers wherever possible, but also Scotland Excel, as we've discussed, they are very motivated to look for more Scottish suppliers and more local suppliers as well. But also they are working hard to break up those contracts, and have geographical lotting, which means that if you are a smaller company, you can bid for a smaller area, a certain geographical area, or you can, just try and sell one product. It depends on your situation, in through other suppliers. So yeah, there's definitely opportunities there, and that is the way that Scotland Excel and local authority contracts are going to include more SMEs, because we know that SMEs bring a whole host of other benefits, and everyone wants to support them. So I would definitely still look into getting into public procurement, even if you are a smaller company. So another question here. Where can I find more information on contracts with local authorities or upcoming opportunities? So the best place to go for that would be Public Contracts Scotland. So all of the contracts, local contracts, and Scotland Excel frameworks will come up through there. You can also engage with Scotland Excel on those frameworks. They do have supplier engagement sessions, so you can chat to them beforehand. Also, if it's a smaller situation where it might be more of a pilot project approach, that I outlined in my presentation, you can always get in touch with me at Food for Life, and I can have a more kind of personal talk with you to see what could be coming up, and what could be an opportunity. Another question here, would getting certification from the Soil Association be a community benefit? So I'm assuming that means getting the Food for Life Served Here award. So if a local authority was to get the Food for Life Served Here award, then it definitely filters into community benefits. So the way that, we've spoken about more local suppliers is definitely a big focus of our award, and more seasonality. So that means that you're more likely to use local contracts and local suppliers, which obviously does bring community wealth building to the area. And a lot of local authorities who have written strategies on community wealth building do mention their involvement with the Food for Life programme, and how their food does kind of take advantage of what's in the local area. So that's what we saw with North Ayrshire. Okay, I think I am coming to the end of my time now. I can't see any more questions there, but if you do have any questions, get in touch. My email address was in the presentation. You can get in touch with me. I'm always happy to talk. But thank you so much for joining us today, and I hope that the presentation was useful. Thank you.